So it has to actually make young women naked into a bikini to cure cancer. It has to steal, the creative copyright of artists to cure cancer. Of course it doesn't.
Baroness Kidron, welcome to Political Thinking.
Great to be here.
When you heard the Prime Minister this week say no platform gets a free pass, he said, trying to sound tough, it seemed to me, against those tech companies, did you welcome a sinner repenteth, or do you think it's all a bit late, really?
Oh, fantastic, great, put his shoulder to the wheel, why not? We need everybody, but a bit late to the party. And I have to say, a lot of the things they announced on Monday are sitting in legislation in the Lords, and they could accept next Monday.
He reminds us from time to time that he's the parent of teenage children. Have you had this conversation with him?
I haven't had that conversation with him. I've had other conversations with him, but I don't think that anybody is an expert because they have their own children. His children are very particularly sheltered. He is the Prime Minister. He has two working parents with education and access to all the information in the world, and nothing that untoward might happen to his individual children. That's not the experience of children at large. And I think he's careless in putting it through the lens of his own children, because that shows a lack of imagination and a lack of political understanding of the realities of many people's lives.
But what is the reality we're confronting as a society, as a country, that you think we really have to wake up to?
So I think if you start in early years, we are literally addicting babies and toddlers to very fast cut, very deliberately addictive products that actually inhibits their ability to access language, to move, to socialise, and so on. We're putting tech into our schools that is untried and untested, and we are taking away the places and spaces that children need to grow up. Then we move on to the actual harms. People need to understand that this is deliberately designed to be compulsive. And then finally, and I think maybe most importantly, ultimately, we're looking at a sort of a destruction of democracy and an interruption of economic life at scale, that is really extracting money out of the UK and landing it quite happily in Silicon Valley.
It seems to me what's really given it a push now is what the Australians have done, the ban on social media for the under-16s. And I remember doing news interviews about that at the time. It was pretty clear, even as they passed the law, they didn't really know what they were doing there. I don't mean that rudely. It was like there was a headline initiative without the detail and the policy work having been done. You think it's not the right approach, don't you? Why?
Listen, I think it's really important to be nuanced. So can I just start by commending all the parents and all the activists who have brought this forward, because they're desperate and they don't want their kids to have this stuff. And I think that is something that we all need to listen to very carefully. Now, my own personal view is that we are in a digital world, we have an AI future, and we can't uninvite the next generation. We have to let them participate in that. But I do think that access to children should be conditional. And it should be conditional on respecting their rights, on keeping them safe, on actually not addicting them and not extracting economic value out of their behaviour.
So put simply, you don't want to ban the phone, you don't want to ban social media, you want to change the product for all of us, but particularly for the under-16s, under-18s.
Yeah, it's almost like ban the company, not the kid.
It seems to me you come to this insight, don't expect the kids to regulate it for themselves, but also don't expect the parents or even the teachers to do it for you.
Yeah,
so if not them, who?
We have all kinds of levers in society, whether it is polluter pays, whether it is consumer rights, whether it is product safety, whether it is a competition. And one by one, all of these levers have been knocked aside by the tech industry. And I think that when people want a silver bullet, I'm going to tell you today, banning social media for 16-year-olds until they're 16 is not a silver bullet. Should we make some things out of the purview? Should we take under 16s away from some of those companies unless they behave themselves? Absolutely. But there's no silver bullet. We have to go absolutely from the beginning, and we have to say product liability, duty of care, mandatory standards, director liability, you name it. If it was a fridge, it would be recalled by now. I think there are some very simple ideas. Now, it's a complex system, but I think there's something else that has now developed, and we're beginning to see some of the fractures, which is, you mentioned Australia, but it's not just Australia. It's Malaysia, it's Indonesia, it's Brazil, it's France, it's, everywhere. And in fact, even in America, which we think of as being, out of bounds currently, it's not. It's in California, it's in Texas, it's in Nevada. The truth of the matter is that actually companies and governments do ultimately, engage with us via our consent. And consent is beginning to be withdrawn. And I think we're at an interesting moment to actually push back.
There's a broad principle. You want to hold companies to account. You want to hold company directors to account. But what specifically?
I would start on the very basic premise that each product is working in its own environment. So what I mean by that is actually if you are publishing, that means you are editorializing your feed, whether it's algorithmically, whether it's via an editor, whether it's by, changing the nuance, that you should be responsible for what you publish.
Literally responsible, because what the publishers would say to you, what the tech companies would say, is literally impractical. They would say to you, look, this is a free space. It's like the town hall. It's like the town square. And by the way, it's had huge benefits.
I'm really interested in this idea of benefit and cost. There is no other situation where we are constantly told that we have to accept the downside to have the upside. So, I'm sure we'll get there. But in AI, how many ministers, Nick, have you interviewed where they go, well, it's going to help us cure cancer? Oh, so it has to actually make young women naked into a bikini to cure cancer. It has to steal, the creative copyright of artists to cure cancer. Of course it doesn't.
Baroness Kidron, thanks so much for joining me on Political Thinking.
Absolute pleasure.